There's an incredibly important pattern most creatives don't realize is impacting their capacity to express themselves fully. And so to begin, I just want to demonstrate two postures that will open up this discussion, right? So tell me which posture elicits more confidence, trust, and magnetism, right? You have posture A, that's like head forward, shoulders hunched, and then posture B, that is a strong spine, open heart, open chest. The important thing to realize is energetically what's happening, right? In your body, one makes you feel small, like it's not safe to take up space, and the other makes you available, grounded, and open to express yourself. And what most creatives don't realize is this not, a collapsed posture is not necessarily a bad habit or something that comes from the ergonomics of like your desk setup or whatever it is. It's really the emotional architecture that your body is operating as, right? Because your spine is literally holding the shape of every moment you've chosen to stay small, hide, choose fear, collapse, etc. And my hope with this video is to shine a light on this pattern so that you can create a new emotional architecture, literally embody a new way of holding yourself so that you can have more courage to express yourself fully in the world, because the way that this will impact your life is endless, right? So I want to begin by just stating the obvious, like your body doesn't forget. There's a really popular book called The Body Keeps the Score. It's an incredible read. I'll give you the absolute cliff notes. One phrase is, your body doesn't forget the emotional experiences that have been coded inside of your physiology. So the way that maybe you hunched your shoulders in a moment where you wanted to express your ideas in a meeting and you just got dismissed, it's still there, you know? The way that maybe you cave your chest inward as a teenager when somebody made fun of how you sang or some art, like that's still there. Or the way you locked up your hips when you were expressing yourself and wanted to dance because other people just didn't approve or made fun of you, whatever it is, it's still there and your body is saying that it's dangerous, right? So this isn't just something that is a metaphor or a mental concept. This is a part of your physiology. And I've been all down this really fun rabbit hole of research right now, and I'm learning a lot about fascia. You know, that it's the connective tissue that wraps around every muscle, every organ, every nerve, and it's constantly responding and sending signals throughout your body, you know. It's basically a huge part of what's responsible for responding to the emotional experiences and how those create physical tension in your body. So there's some research in the Journal of Bodywork and Movement Therapy that talks about tensional memory. So what this is your fascia literally deposits collagen along these lines of tension wherever you're storing it in your body, creating this sort of emotional scar, right? Because where you're holding tension, there's something rough inside your fascia, and what's happening there is your body releases chemicals that are altering the molecular structure of that point of fascia, creating this scar tissue. And they're finding that a lot of this is part and parcel to the tension we're holding, to the emotional tension that gets stored in those places. In a nutshell, what this means is your spine, or your nervous system as well, is responsible for sending these signals through your body every moment that you need protection, right? And safety, of course, but for the most part, this works in a more self-destructive way. So now that signal that has created this tension in your fascia is now locked in your muscle, essentially, as a block to your creative expression. So the mechanism is this. It's called character structure, and a scientist, Alexander Lowen, stated that people who experience early experiences of shame store that in their posturing, in literally the structure of their character. So people who experience shame tend to have more, I'm really exaggerating, right? Tend to have more collapsed chests, or they literally tuck their tailbone or their butt inward. It's called shame butt. There's this actual structure that the body literally creates that it makes you less visible, makes you smaller, makes it, I don't want to take up that much space, I'm afraid to, I'm shameful of it. You get the point, right? So there's a character structure that gets encoded in the way that you are holding yourself. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know how this is going to impact your creative expression. So other examples are rage, right? Maybe that's chronically stored in your jaw and in your hips. Your neck is locked and you're very rigid, you know. The ways that, and again, I want to acknowledge, like, these aren't conscious choices. These happen unconsciously and they go largely unnoticed, so it becomes a reinforced pattern that happens over time. It's a survival strategy, I get it, but just because you were too young then to be able to change your nervous system doesn't make you a victim, but now you are responsible, right? You're not to blame for how that happened, but if you want to become more free, more open, more expressed, you're responsible for creating a new pattern. The problem is your nervous system doesn't know that the threat is over, even though what happened to you when you were a kid or whatever the trigger for the emotional experience was, your nervous system's still reacting. That's why, you know, things like polyvagal theory suggest that, like, it's not the traumatic event itself that causes the physiological change in you. It's the response inside of you that got triggered, that now your nervous system is holding on to that response, right? So it's still running in the background. It's less the thing, it's more the response, right? So this can hopefully give some relief that maybe your collapsed posture isn't about laziness or not necessarily about bad habits, although there's a lot you can do with habits, right? It's your nervous system that's learned being visible isn't safe, taking up space is dangerous. In full expression, I'm absolutely not going to do that because that puts my life on the line. So until we learn to address that at a bodily level, we are safe despite what happened to us, and we can cultivate safety, no amount of mindset work or affirmations is going to help you share your creative gifts more sustainably, right? So how this shows up in your creative life is this. You might sit down to create and your body slouches a little bit, your breath gets shallow, and your chest caves in. Or you finish a piece of work that maybe you're excited about, but the moment you think of sharing it, your head drops, you know, your body literally assumes the phase of, I'm too small, I'm scared, I don't want to be seen. Even though I'm really excited, but I'm too small, I'm scared, I don't want to be seen. Or maybe you're in a meeting presenting your ideas and you start shrinking, you start talking in a smaller voice, you know, maybe your shoulders get closer to your ears. I'm exaggerating them, but I trust that you can intuit, you know what, yeah, I have this pattern. Taking up space, I've made equal rejection in my life, you know? So these are patterns in your nervous system that are keeping you small and safe, just maybe not in the safe that you want to embody moving forward, which is more full expression. Because here's the paradox. A collapsed spine, anytime we store that data and shrink, is collapsing our creative expression. So there's no freaking way you're able to create from your depth when you're in like this protective state, a crouch, you know? There's no way you can give your gifts fully when your nervous system is saying that visibility is a threat. And I want you to be able to sustain creative work. And so here's the practice. What do you do with all of this? First, it's just awareness, right? Everything starts with awareness. Just start tracking your posture throughout the day. Posture when you're creating, posture when you're engaging with other people, presenting ideas, posture, whatever area of life you want to observe. Notice when your chest collapses, your shoulders tighten, you clench your jaw, your spine hunches, all of these things. Observe it not to try to fix it but just to notice it, right? The question then becomes, what am I protecting myself against right now? What am I bracing for? And explore what comes up. The second is to bring breath, right? And you can do a fun little experiment right now. Try to collapse your chest and take a really deep, full breath. It's so hard. Like, you naturally want to lengthen and open, right? Practice what it means to take full, deep breath into your body and notice how it changes the literal structure of your body. The more strong and open your spine is, the more length, the more breath is circulating through your body, you know? You can feel your ribs expand. You can feel what it's like to bring breath down deep into your belly, you know? And when you exhale completely, let your shoulders soften, teaching your body like, wow, it's so safe right now. I can kind of let my guard down. Not like a soften, like I'm all like completely loose and limber and buttered up or whatever it is. But just the softness that comes from that last bit of an exhale, like fully exhaling. If you're anything like me, I feel like I spent so much of my life only exhaling like 80%, clenching that last little bit. But to really just letting your shoulders drop that extra little bit creates so much safety in your body, you know? And so, and important to note, I don't want you to focus on fixing your posture if it's hunched or collapsed. You can experiment with that, but just bring breath and awareness, and that'll sort out 80% of the work. And then if you choose, bring your awareness to your literal character structure, you know, the way you hold yourself. And lastly, movement is so important. You know, your fascia responds so well to movement, stretching, especially slow and mindful movements, you know. So obviously things like yoga, things like something I've learned about and been practicing myself is what's called the Alexander technique. And it's giving your body those physical cues to hold yourself open. And again, this is more subtle and nuanced, so just practice breath and movement, just walking, stretching, whatever it is. But then on the more advanced level, practice becoming aware of the subtle cues that make you feel more open and available and confident, right? Like a slightly tucked chin, shoulders like back and down, heart up and out, strong spine, deep breath. All of these things in any moment will help you express yourself from a more deep place. And when we can access that level of confidence to express ourselves, that courage to express ourselves, we are naturally going to create more of the self-expression, more of the relations, more of the connections, and more of just the everyday minutia that we crave deep down, whether we can articulate that or not, you know? It's not to become an expert on all of these things. Trying to become such an expert often gets in the way of just practicing and being as you are. So start with awareness, add in breath, and then add in movement. This is all to help let your body remember that it's safe to take up space and it's safe to slow down. So to tie a bow on all this, here's really what I want you to understand. So many of your creative blocks aren't actually in your head. They're in your spine, your fascia with all the emotional tension, your muscles, and especially your nervous system. So the way that you have learned to hold your body is the way that you are holding your creative expression. And the way out is through deepening your connection with yourself, your body, and being able to release a lot of this tension, this emotional tension, through your body, through your posture. A collapsed spine is collapsed creative expression. An open spine naturally evokes more open, full-bodied expression, right? And again, it's not about learning to do this so that you feel more productive. If I stand up taller, I'll be more productive and magnetic. Like, yeah, there's some truth in that. But it's about reconciling and unwinding sometimes decades of posturing and the storage of emotional tension in your body. You know, it's learning to finally open up to express yourself a little bit more fully so that your body can feel safe in that level of expression. Regardless of the outcomes, it's hard to not be attached to being received well. That's a different discussion for a different day. This is just about helping you have the courage to hold yourself, to breathe, slow down, and express yourself so that you can create a new relationship to what safety means to you. Because you are safe enough to be seen. You are safe enough to take up space. You're safe enough to give your gifts from your depth and see how it impacts the world, right? And none of this is in your mind. This is in your body. And it starts with your spine, your breath, and your nervous system. So if this lands with you, start simple. Awareness, breath, movement. Let your spine lengthen, let your breath be deep, and let it feel good in your body. You know, that's the work. So I want y'all to practice that, do it with love, and I'm excited to hear about your journeys. All the links are in the description for more. I appreciate y'all for being here. Ciao.